be here. I'm Dana Kirwin. I am a mom of two. I live with my husband and our family in Minneapolis, and I work for Medela on lactation support services for working moms.
And what you're going to hear Dana talk about is how you can really get it started to share things at home. So listen into this wonderful story. So Dana, I really was caught by your story when we first met each other. And what I saw was that you and Peter have a really nice, strong relationship at home. And one way to see that is the rhythm of the mornings and the ends of your workday. Can you tell us a little bit about how old are your kids? What does the morning look like? What does the end of the day look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I have two children. My oldest is almost 6 this weekend, so he's very excited. And then my youngest is almost 2 in a couple months. And so we have a typical family routine, I think, in terms of, everybody's getting out of the door in the morning. My husband and I both work full time. And so it's about getting everyone together. And of course, when you have kids with that age difference, they have to go to different places. They need slightly different things during the day. And our routine is really a team effort. We get up together as a family and get the kids going. We have some helpful checklists of like what needs to be in the backpack for school, what needs to be in the daycare bag, who needs breakfast or who gets fed, once they get dropped off. And we sort of have a little plan. And the nice thing is it's consistent, during the week for the most part. And we're both very familiar with it. And so when we're up in the morning, we'll kind of, call to each other as we're getting the kids ready. Hey, I'm working on getting the daycare bag packed. Can you start making lunch? Or, yep, on it. I've got that. Hey, did you grab a water bottle? Nope, I'll go take care of that. So we're just kind of talking through the list together. And it's very much all hands on deck. And then I actually work from home. And so, but my husband works in an office. And so what has really been great for our family and worked best for our routine is that we get the kids together and out the door, and he takes them and then he does their drop off and then goes on to his office and has his work day. I take my work day once they're out the door. I can get started at home. And then at the end of the day, I wrap up and I go pick the kids up from their respective locations and bring them back home. And my husband and I kind of know about what that timing looks like. So he just aims to be home kind of within, 10 or 15 minutes of our usual arrival. And then we kind of undo, it's the opposite thing. We unpack the bags, who's making dinner, who's getting people cleaned up. And that's just really what's worked for us. It's very, I would say 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I hear is a real team effort and interchangeable. Like, in other words, somebody's not giving someone the list. It's a list that you collectively know, and you're both working through those activities. And that's, I would imagine for you, you might know some moms where that's not the case, where they feel like they're holding that list and they're telling their partner what to do. And how does that change your morning and end of day for you and Peter? Does that make it better? And in what way does it make it better?
It makes it much better. And I definitely have friends that have different routines. And I certainly acknowledge, not everybody works the same schedule or the same kind of jobs. And for some people, balance may look quite different than a 50-50, everybody can do everything kind of a thing. But I think for a lot of families that have a schedule and a situation that looks like mine, I can say, like, when I was on maternity leave and my husband had gone back to work, and with our firstborn, that happened kind of right away. A lot of the morning routine and the baby routine was established by me. And it was something that I held. I knew how to do all the things. I knew when my son needed to be fed. When did he nap? When did we change him? What were all of the cues and the routines? And when that gets established early on, if you don't intentionally start to relinquish ownership and control of that knowledge, it does become a significant burden, because when there are days that you're like, you know, even on maternity leave, like I want to go to the store, but I've got to leave a detailed plan for my husband to know what to do if I'm not taking the baby with me, all the way up to when I went back to work. Well, I have to own the routine because I'm the one who knows what to do. And it's not that my husband isn't helpful or wouldn't do anything I asked him to, but it puts me in the job of overseer and director. And if anything gets missed, it's on me. Right. And that is, I think, a lot of pressure. And I think it feeds into and fuels that mental load and that mom guilt that we talk a lot about socially.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, that's what got us connected. Was I heard a little bit about what shifted things for you. And so think about that moment in time that you told me about, where you had a new job, the job required travel, your son was 8 months old, you knew that around the corner was a trip, and you had kind of gotten into this routine to be the person who knew all this stuff, and yet you needed to leave and go on this work trip, and therefore you could not do all this stuff. Help us, guide us through that. Was there some anxiety? Was there some fear? What happened to get out the door? And then tell us about what happened when you got back.
I think anxiety is a great word for it. And that's exactly right. I had taken a new job. And so, of course, there's all the pressure of my own personal routine had changed a lot. My work setting, my coworkers, my responsibilities. And then on top of it, this role required travel, which was not something that had really been a part of my work life before, and certainly not as a mom, as a working mom. And so as we kind of entered into that space, I do remember feeling anxious about how is everything going to get done. Feeling guilty, I'm leaving my child, feeling guilty, I'm leaving my husband, he's going to have to do everything by himself. Never mind that I had done it by myself plenty of times, but that's, it's this feeling that doesn't make logical sense, but it's there. I don't know that I had any specific fear for my child or for my husband's ability to take care of him. It's just that concern of, what if they need me and I'm not reachable? I'm on a plane, I'm far away, and there's a question, or my husband doesn't know to do something and he doesn't do it right, and then the routine gets broken, and and then you what if there's not enough milk in the freezer? What if the sleeping routine gets disrupted? You just pick every little thing that you worry about anyway, and it compounds because you're going, I'm not going to be here to handle it, and I've only ever seen it handled by me. And so for me, that leading up to that trip, that preparation was a lot of mental rehearsal for myself. Just, everything is going to be fine. My husband knows how to do all of this. And even some practice, of like, okay, you take a turn at feeding him, at doing the whole bedtime routine. Let me know if you have questions, but I just want you to do it. Or the getting ready in the morning, I'll be right there, but like, can you just do it so that I know you can do it, and as much so that you know you can do it? Because I think that the other thing that we forget is that we really unempower our partners when we try to take all of that on. And I think not only does it create an excuse for them to not be doing that activity when they probably could be helping more, but it's a real disservice to them as a parent, and to your children and their relationship and your children's confidence in that person to take care of them. And when they're tiny infants, it probably isn't having an impact on your child, but as they grow, if those habits form and stick without realizing it, you're communicating a lot to your kids about what your role is, what your partner's role is, and what they maybe would or should expect when they become an adult or a parent. So I think that, anyway, working through it and practicing it was really good for us. And it did help, although it doesn't go totally, it didn't go totally away until I had lived through it.
Yes. So tell us about what it was like to come back. So you were away for X amount of time, and then you came back, you had this big experiment, a little anxiety. Yes. Tell us what Absolutely. That was like.
It went fine. I mean, the thing is, just like it will 99% of the time, everything was fine. Nothing went wrong. Everybody had everything they needed. My husband proved, as he always does, he is just a perfectly competent human being who can figure things out and keep a small human alive. And I think for me, there was a lot of joy and freedom in coming back and realizing that, in a way to say I'm not needed in that way. It's freeing. It's not, because I know I can do it and I know I am helpful. It isn't like, oh, they don't need me. Of course they need me, but they don't need me every minute. And sharing parenting becomes this really wonderful thing. And I think it was so confidence building for both my husband and I to go through that process. And really, after that first trip, it just, like, I felt like I could just go to the store if I needed to, or go out for the night if I wanted to. And I didn't feel that same, well, I should make sure the baby gets put to bed before I leave the house, or, well, I do want to go to the store, but I should wait until the baby's napping so there's no work for anybody else. It's just like, no, my husband can do that. And so that was a really wonderful experience.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think we won't spend time talking about it right now, but you pointed out how it changed your relationship with your husband. It changed his relationship with your first child and then second child. That was all that routine was there, because, by the way, it's not double the work when a second child comes along. It's exponentially different when a second child comes along. But, just to wrap it up, I mean, this is really a great example of how we have some influence in our lives about how we can do things differently. And we're trying to encourage people to think big about how they can set up their lives to be more satisfying. So what advice would you give young couples who are thinking about having a child, have a new baby at home, to avoid stepping into these kind of gendered roles? What quick advice can you give people as a takeaway from our conversation?
I think probably there's so many things, but I think really what it boils down to is be intentional about dividing responsibility. And I think that takes a few forms. One is talk out loud about it, and about all of the responsibility, not at a high level, but about the nitty gritty. Who's cleaning bottles? Who's changing diapers? Who's packing daycare bags? Because all of those things have to be accounted for. And I think that recognizing what's needing to be done is a great way to say, a starting point to say, how do we divide this evenly in our circumstances? And I think the other thing in terms of being intentional is that practicing. Like, it sounds kind of silly to me, even now, even after having done it. But really, I think letting go is more than just deciding, well, if I ever had to, I would let go. That's not letting go. You have to actually force yourself to do it. Create circumstances where you leave and your partner is engaged, and watch them thrive, because it will absolutely reward both of you. And I think create much more real balance. And in a world today where parental leave is unpredictable, maternity and paternity leave can be very imbalanced, we aren't set up structurally to automatically divide that way. And so I just think being intentional is really important.
Yeah. And I think that the rewards are enormous. And as people listen in today, I know that they're going to be inspired by your story and about that real good advice of be intentional, make it happen. See what happens when you do this, because it will really change things.